Have you ever been conflicted about a decision you needed to make, or maybe feel like you're kind of split in your parts? Like you have one part that wants to do one thing and another part that wants to do another? If so, you're going to enjoy this talk regarding parts work. So it is a type of modality that I find pretty powerful, and I've kind of trained myself when I go into a deep hypnosis or into a meditation, because for those that don't know me, I should first introduce myself in case there's new people on board. My name is Anne Marie. I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist. I'm also a medical doctor, but my main specialization is hypnotherapy. So I help people process their emotions, learn how to connect with their subconscious mind. And one of those modalities that I utilize is called parts work. So in regards to parts work, the whole idea is that there are many facets that make up who we are. We have like our mind, and then we have all these parts that were developed from certain events and experiences, because events and relationships are the main programming of who you are. Relationships and events. We learn how to engage in life and how to behave by those around us. We are being taught, and there's obviously some characteristics about who we are that I believe is just so energetically or spiritually, whatever model you like to align with, is part of us. Like we have our spirit characteristics that is very like from birth, like you just this child has its characteristics that it will have. However, beliefs and egos are developed because beliefs have these egos or identity of self. That's the ego. Ego wants to identify with self, and so we create all these different subparts within us. And usually the parts are developed by two aspects, which I like to look at as like the big categories of all these different little parts within those categories, which is the inner child and the inner parent. Inner child is your younger self, that is you, and you interpreted what is going on around you and said, okay, because of this event or because of this relationship, I believe that I am. For me, I usually talk about what I've experienced as a child. And for me, like a lot of my beliefs as a child was that I am a burden, that I am alone, that I am not good enough. So those were like my inner child egos, beliefs that I developed about myself. And then we have inner parent, where basically is the critical mind, where we're taking on more of like their characteristic or their beliefs that they developed. So like an example would be, I had a client yesterday that believed that they could not trust themselves, and that they had to doubt themselves, so that they were not trusting. And that came from mom. So that belief came from mom. It was not them at all. It just purely came from mom. It was mom's voice, sound like mom, and they had this like parent ego aspect of who they are. So in parts work, what we want to do is we want to connect with these parts, because when we get in conflict, it almost seems like we're battling between two aspects when we're trying to make maybe a certain decision. And you can clearly hear when parts are coming through, because someone will say, oh, there's a part of me that wants to do this, and there's a part of me that doesn't want to do this. And so in my podcast, as I talk about this topic, one of the examples I gave is like, right now with the pandemic, there are people out there, and including myself, like where it's like there's a part of me that doesn't want to go out and go through some of the extra steps now required to socialize and in social environments. And then there's a part of me that does, because I love engaging with people. I love seeing people, connecting with them, and that is the more childlike aspect of me that loves to that wants to just go out and play. And then there's like a parental side that says almost like, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, because, you're it's not acceptable, or it's not good, or you're going to get sick, or whatever it may be. And so in order to figure out what it is that I really want, and this is kind of a superficial example, I will sit with myself in silence, and I will dialogue with these parts. Now, the one challenge that is very difficult, though, for people in regards to parts work is that stepping out of the part takes the ability to disassociate from it. there needs to be the ability to shift, to move. And when we're in a part, it feels so, that's like, it's the lens that you can see life through, that it makes it very hard for you to project out, in a sense. So learning, especially when an emotion is so powerful, like it's like a vortex, you get like sucked into it. And then when you're in that part really takes on its characteristics of maybe the emotion that it's having. So it could be sadness, it could be fear. And when we're feeling those emotions, it number one, it can be definitely very overwhelming for someone. So I would not encourage someone to do this if they are unable to kind of become the observer and step out of it and learn how to step in and out of it. I would recommend they find a facilitator. But if you're able to kind of step out of it and look at your part, making sure that you're recognizing also that this part has its lenses and it's seeing it from that view only. And so we need to help shift its view if it's not right. And you'll know which part is the more wise, mature, or part that can assist you. So for me, I've used my wise aspect, my higher self, to help educate my other parts. And I have to listen to these other parts, because if we're just ignoring parts, and where I remember someone brought it up on the Insight Timer about bypassing. And it's been a topic that I've had on my list that I want to talk about, and they brought it up, and I was like, oh, I haven't heard about this, and I actually looked it up, and I was like, oh, that's what that is. But what bypassing is when we kind of try to skip that part in order to heal. We need to make sure that part transitions and makes a shift. So making sure that part has a voice too, to make sure that even though you have a wise aspect, some people I've worked with that have developed certain parts of them that are just so wise and so knowledgeable and really are the masters of understanding life, but then there's other parts that are not that. And there are events and situations that will pop them into that part that is not as well developed. And that's what we want to help and heal. Even though you develop one part, we have to develop the other part. We have to bring it on board. So that's almost when that person talked about bypassing, that's what I thought about, is like, that's just like helping one part, but you're ignoring the other parts. But every part is a part of you. Every part is a part of you. And we would want to unprogram what it learned at one point by helping other parts give it maybe what it needs. And after we give it what it needs, so let's say we have a child part, in the example of not wanting to go out, we ask it, what are you fearful? And then we have to pop back in, yes, I'm fearful. Make sure that is the correct feeling. And we make sure that part, okay, well, what is it that you need? That part has to kind of tell us, what does it need? Well, I need to feel safe. Okay, what would you need in order to feel safe? And it needs to come from that part, because that part knows what it needs. Sometimes we try to be like, almost like a parent. It's like, we know what you need. We know what you need. And they just do. That's not really helping the situation when it comes to parts work. So when I first learned how to do this, I would say on myself, I couldn't. When I was going through this kind of like healing process, I honestly had such a closed heart, because I was blocking so much and suppressing. And when we block and suppress, it's something we do because we don't know how else to handle the emotions. We don't understand the emotions, and we learned how to block. That is what we did. Society, parents, whomever, we didn't get the guidance on how to deal with these emotions that we block, we ignore, because it's like the default in regards to how majority of the population deals with emotions. We block. So for me, when I first started doing this, I felt like my emotions were uncontrollable. And so stepping into an emotion was not possible because I couldn't pull back out. And I was terrified of even stepping into that emotion because I felt like it consumed me. It was that vortex. So before someone would do parts work on their own, I had to open myself up a bit more and kind of bring those emotions into a state of manageability by myself. How can we shift our parts to make better decisions? So if you're able to, so the best way that I like to explain it is you become the observer. Huge about observer. And what the observer is we don't suppress, we don't ignore, we don't suppress, but we take a stance as the witness of what's going on. In meditation, in hypnosis is the same thing as meditation. It's just it's a bit more deeper, and there's an intention behind reprogramming and getting to that theta state of mind. And when we're in a meditation or hypnosis, we become more aware. I like to say it's almost like you're a bird flying above and seeing all these little different parts of you. It is more of an observer position where you're becoming the witness of yourself. You're becoming the observer of yourself. And when you're able to do that, step out of and kind of have the observer, you can tell if a part is there. Sometimes a part will retreat because it's scared or it doesn't want to come out or it doesn't know how, or a part takes on characteristics. And so we can kind of see and have a sense that a part is there. So if a part is too strong for us to work with, we can begin to just find a way to get a message from it. We have this almost, it's part of us. So we have this like telepathic way of just being able to understand what maybe a part may need. And so you recognize, you get a sense. I have a sense that it's scared. And then you ask yourself, okay, what is it? And it doesn't want to come forward. What is it that it needs? Oh, it just needs, to know it's safe. Okay, send safe messages to it. And the purpose of doing that is starting to kind of bring down the emotional charge that is behind a part that doesn't want to come out. So if we're unable to even ask that question and get an answer back, then I would say we start to just sit in observer, to become the observer and just being aware of all the various emotions and parts that are within us. Sometimes parts can be so intertwined because they're working with each other that it seems like multiple emotions for one, and that's fine, and that's completely fine, because all parts are like this. It has a characteristic that becomes its whole personality. And so what I do with my clients is I have them name parts. So we say, okay, we have this part that feels sad, that feels like it's alone, that feels like it's being rejected, that it feels like, and it feels that, and I connect it with the emotion. It feels that sadness in its chest, in its belly. And because whenever we get a certain emotion, we usually have that felt in our body. That's the felt sense. And so when we connect it with that, that's its characteristics. It's coming through as a feeling in the chest or wherever, and it's a feeling of sadness, and it believes all these things. That's one part of us. And so we say, okay, I'll give you me as an example. I had a part that just wanted to withdraw, that felt alone, that felt like a burden, that felt like, very sad in my chest, and I named it Annie. I named her Annie. And it turned into a little part of me. It turned into my inner child, a part of my inner child that actually was 4 years old. And because it is like a stuck part of us in time that was created from an experience and relationship that I had at 4 years old. So I named the part Annie. And so whenever I brought up Annie, it kind of became this entity of me that I needed to nurture and to learn how to understand, to learn how to connect with, to give it what it needs so that I can heal it. To heal it so it starts to come out more and connect with me and makes me more whole. Because all these parts are us, but the coping is the separation of these parts, and in order to deal with it, the asking what I need, that's something that I can't really answer in regards to what you would need. You would have to give that answer, because what you may need in order to make better decisions will be different. I'm going to tell you, you can tell which part feels more authentic to you. The part that feels more authentic to you is going to feel, it's going to feel good. It's going to feel more balanced, more peace, more, it's just this aligned feeling of like knowing that this is authentically me. And it's hard to explain by words because it is a feeling. It's like the felt sense. There's a quality to just the part that feels more authentically you. And if that's something that you haven't been able to understand yet, then you start with just sitting with yourself and kind of getting to know you. Becoming the observer is dating yourself. it's dating yourself and being like, I need to get to know this person and who you are and what all aspects create up who you are. And the only way you're going to do that is by sitting and paying attention. And so you sit with yourself and you pay attention to yourself. You just pay attention without judgment. You just sit and say, oh, I have this feeling. I have this feeling. This feeling connects with sadness. This feeling connects with joy. This feeling connects with, and you just get to learn you. Sorry, I missed this question. How do I know it's the answer? I never really hear an answer. So sometimes when we're doing inner work, for you, the answers may come through. Maybe the thing that you need to work on is learning how to listen. I hope I'm going to answer this correctly, so please correct me if I'm not. We need to learn when we become the observer. It's learning to listen too, learning to understand how we're communicating. For me, the listening was the quality of the voice that helped me understand which is which. So I would be confused about which part is coming through just because the voice was my voice, but the quality of the type of voice that would come through was my distinguisher of a part. Not everybody is very auditory. I am a very auditory person. I am extremely sensitive to sounds, and I pick up on things. That's how, I get messages, in a sense, is through my hearing in me. Some people, though, can pick up messages or listen visually. You can listen visually. You can listen tactily, a feeling. It feels as though it needs this. It feels as though it needs that. And that may be something you just need to play with in order to learn how to listen to yourself. If you're unsure on how it's giving you because we may be getting the answer, but we're not sure how to listen to the answer because it's coming through in a way that we are not sure, or we may be trying to look for it more. Sometimes the conscious effort of looking for something gets in the way of allowing the answer to come through. It's kind of like the more you try, the harder it gets. It's like, have you ever tried to sleep? And this is a common one where you're like, the more you try to sleep and fall asleep, the harder it is to fall asleep. And that's because conscious mind, thinking mind is trying to do the work. Conscious mind is not the part of you that sleeps. It's the body that sleeps. The body knows how to sleep. The body does it all. It's like trying to drive with your thoughts. The body is the one that drives. So you allow the body to tell you, to communicate with you. That's the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind holds parts. It holds all these emotional ego aspects of us. So the listening is the listening to the subconscious mind, not the thinking mind. And that may be where you're at in that regard. I hope that makes sense, because I can go deep in this topic, and I want to make sure that's why I created the podcast. And my hopes is that people will listen to the topic, get to know about it, this modality, and then I can answer questions like that. So I appreciate that question. There's so many ways and modalities in helping us heal. And I like to look at it as, the way that I do it is just the way that I have done it on myself, and that has helped my clients. So, but it's not the only way. There's so many ways, and it's like, what way feels right for you in the explanation, and it just feels right. Because in the most basic way, though, of seeing it is like this is a spoke on a bike to getting to the same thing. We are all energy. The center of the bike wheel is energy, and there's many spokes going to the center. And so it's leading you to create oneness of who you are, to allow all these parts to create a oneness, a balance, acceptance, forgiveness, compassion, like everything in one. Because we pull in so many different parts from our experiences that we become separated from who we are. And that oneness is what these modalities are doing. In the grander scheme of things, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be let go or transformed. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to transform parts, which are collective energies, or trying to let go of maybe parts that are collective energies. And we can let go through exercise, through crying, through talk, through venting, through breath. There's so many ways of letting go, but sometimes the deeper modality comes in transformation, transforming the energy. It's like transforming the water, into steam, transforming it into a new, the butterfly transforming from a caterpillar to a butterfly. So we're transforming the energetic sense, which really kind of cleans it all out in a sense. Would you say that every part is working to serve and protect the person? If so, how do you tell a bad part it's acting in the wrong way? Okay, very good question. I want to make sure I answer this question for Rich. I think I did answer it, but I just want to make sure it was clear. Parts work definitely is overlapping with shadow work, because all shadow work is these the dark sides, these parts that are seen as maybe bad or not good. So yes, absolutely, it is shadow work. But as you delve into healing, that is the healing of seeing that these dark parts of us that we all have is us. And this is a conversation that is a bit deep in concept, but I was having this conversation is that we could not exist. This reality that we're experiencing could not exist without duality, without polarity, without positive and negative. And the same thing goes for us. The creation of life came from one. We all are connected, and I'm this energetic, woo-woo person that likes to talk about this stuff. So I'm going to throw this out there: is that we all came from this one, and in order for that one to be able to, it just is, and in order for it to be able to expand and grow, it needed to go in to look at itself, to learn who it is. And in order to do that, you can't look at yourself unless you had two parts. So that is when the one became almost separated, so that it can look at itself to learn about itself, to be able to expand and grow. And so that expansion continued to grow. and continue to make multiple parts so that we can look at ourselves to learn who we are. That is the positive negative. It's the only way that things are going to be separated is to separate the up and the down, the sweet and the tart, the dirty and the clean, the white and the black. It is the polar opposite of itself. It is the one, though. It is all connected to the same thing. So when we're able to look at our parts and see that it is part of us, there is huge opportunity to grow. Because what has happened is we separate these parts and we say, that is not us. No way, that is not us. And so we reject parts. So going back now to the question that was asked, would you say that every part is working to serve and protect the person? I'm going to say there are no parts that are bad. Bad is the terminology that we put upon ourselves. There just is. And that's the struggle that we have of identifying, because we want to reject parts and we say, that's bad, I'm good. That's bad, I'm good. This is not me, but it is us. And we all have these shadow parts that if we really dig deep and look at it's most of them absolutely are trying to be one. It is trying to protect us. It is good. There is no good and evil. And good and evil is even, I'm going deep here. So, and these are big concepts that some may even struggle with recognizing, because we all are very programmed to be able to see beliefs even surrounding religion. And I absolutely believe that all parts are good and that they are trying to protect us, but it is a huge healing for us to be able to see that and recognize that. I hope I answered that. Yeah, a really good book on shadow work that I liked, and her approach, she uses like a mirror metaphor, and I've done a talk about it, and that is called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers by Debbie Ford. Really good book. So I would encourage that if you want to do shadow work. And yes, shadow work is like parts work. This is, again, just a spoke going to the center of the wheel. There's so many ways. And so if shadow work, focusing on that helps you, or if this modality helps you, then, the book is called Dark Side of the Light Chasers by Debbie Ford. If you want to work on more of that dark side. There's a lot of questions, so I'm going through them. I have an idea that bad parts actually have good intentions but misinterpret their task. Yes, because parts have a job and they do misinterpret their task because nobody showed them how to do it better. And so we want to teach parts how to do their job better, how to play all, as one. And so parts do misinterpret their task. So I'm happy you brought that up. Yes, your interpretation is actually exactly how I help people. I call it a job. I'm like, even though work and job is negative connotation, I'm like, okay, how can we help this part do its job better? Because its job is to protect us. Majority of them, its part is to protect us. So how it's been protecting us is holding us back, creating anxiety, making all these what ifs and thoughts in our mind, and making us feel scared and anxious, or creating all these beliefs and ideas about ourselves. So is that really protecting us? No, it's not. We learn to recognize that that's not the best way it can protect us. It can protect us by making us feel safe. What happens when we ignore children? Mommy, 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 mommy. They pull out your sleeve, they're tugging at your shoulder, then they start to scream, Mommy! They want to just get attention. And then what happens when we look at them and we just give them that attention? They immediately will start to calm down. So it's that attention that can help parts alone. Just getting to meet them, sitting with them, being like, you exist, you're there, is part of the healing process. Any tips on letting go of frustration when working with the parts? When you get frustrated with parts, the part that is getting frustrated is a part. The part that is getting frustrated is a part. You have to remember that. So, we can't have parts help parts that are not helped themselves, if that makes sense. So we do need positive, wise, helpful parts to help parts. I serve as like a part as a resource for parts. So I will give, if there are, so what you would do if there are no resourceful parts that need, I was the same way. I went to a hypnotherapist and they helped me create resourceful parts. The information they gave me helped create resourceful parts, which then helped me use those parts that were resourceful to help other parts. I hope that makes sense. Oh man, I had a lot. We all have a lot of parts that make up who we are, and we're all unique. For me, I've worked on 10 parts, clearly 10 parts. And I named all of them. I named them Annie, I named them Jealousy, I named them Fear, I've named them Bob. Like, I've named them weird names just because, like, it's kind of like this characteristic that you just start to, as opposed to be like that part that does this, this, and this, and this, and this. It's like you lump it all in one to make it easy. It makes it almost it makes it a bit easy also to be an observer and look at it and kind of see these parts and know who they are based on name and be able to kind of work with them. It makes it a bit more easier, in my opinion. I hope you enjoyed this live talk replay. If you did, please feel free to check us out. Show notes below have all of our links and contacts, as well as our podcast, which is at Rapid Realization Podcast, where we have discussions just like this one that you listen to. If you want to connect more, please feel free to put comments below or hit the like button or subscribe for future updates. Have a great one.